Good morning to all our viewers here on EBNet Stream for this special edition of Power Plays and Paydays, where I am delighted to have with me as our guest today, who I refer to as the Joe Rogan of South African podcasting, Mr. Mike Sham of the State of the Nation podcast. Mike, welcome and thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Leon. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's always good to speak to people.
Great. Mike, I would like to start off because I've noticed this incredible increase in the popularity of podcasts in South Africa, which is very much following on from the shift from mainstream media globally or in developed countries into also the podcasting world, which is sort of dominating the conversation and becoming the place to go to get not just your news, but to debate opinion at the end of the day. Very similar thing happening in South Africa, and you're at the forefront of that, having started State of the Nation. And you also have a podcast, I believe, with Musi Mamani as well.
Yeah, we do. We've got a second channel that we've started, which is called The Political Insider, which is more sort of short, it's shorter productions where we focus on some of the daily news, zero in on one story. So it's short form compared to State of the Nation, which is usually longer form, either interviews or analysis. This is just short form analysis of the news on a daily basis. So Musi joins me about once a week to understand what's happening inside Parliament, because that's become another battleground.
So I suppose people would always look at news agencies and say you need to be expert in your field in order to deliver the news. I see podcasting as being a bit different. At the end of the day, it's about the voice of the people. It's about the debates. It's about putting the opinion out there. It's not about trying to specifically get to any particular outcome, but rather get the conversation going. So in that context, do you agree with that? Why do you think it is becoming more popular now in South Africa, and why did you ultimately get into it?
Okay, so a couple of questions there. Firstly, my involvement was completely accidental. I'll take the second bit first, right? The idea of starting State of the Nation happened to me rather than the other way around. I have got a background in financial markets. I was a stockbroker for my first career, and then I moved out of that and started a corporate events business, which focused a lot on corporate training and information. And COVID arrived, and suddenly we were literally banned from doing business, which is a very terrible feeling, to lose that kind of liberty. But anyway, sitting around feeling sorry for ourselves, we couldn't do what we were doing, watching the bills mount up, and you just arrive at work with no work that you can do. We were a little bit behind the curve as a business in that we hadn't tackled streaming or anything like that. Although we had done a lot of in-person events, we decided to turn one of our live events. Let's see what we can do with it. The State of the Nation had been started back in 2009, in actual fact, as a response to the presidency of Jacob Zuma. I found that a lot of corporates had no idea why South Africa had committed suicide by taking a country that was growing, that was doing things right, and suddenly you bring this crooked, uneducated, unsophisticated person who doesn't understand the modern world to run your country, expecting a good outcome. And we thought that, it would be a good idea to put people on stage to a business audience to explain what was going on in South Africa. And that was State of the Nation. That carried on for a long time. In actual fact, our last big State of the Nation breakfast that we had was in February 2020. So I never thought we were going to, turn it into a podcast. But what I did have was I had a cell phone full of very useful telephone numbers of people who had been at my live events. And we started to put it out there, and that was probably in sort of 2021 or so on a short, and then, just on a small basis. And around 23, we decided to start taking it seriously. So this has been going for about 2 years properly. And it's found its own form. So that's how we started State of the Nation. So it wasn't like some preconceived idea. It started from a place of authenticity. Then you asked the question about why we've seen such a growth in podcasting. I think that as you would know very well with what you do, the world operates in cycles. And we had got to a perfect storm as two cycles hit at the same time. And I don't think a lot of people understand this. On the one hand, you finally had technology that allowed anybody to do anything, right? i.e. YouTube and various other social media channels. That was the first thing, and that was kind of sitting there. But I think it hadn't quite found its usefulness yet. And then around the same time, and largely due to COVID and some of the ideas that were swirling around, people really felt the need to end the bullshit, to be perfectly honest, there's no other way to put it, of having, media dress things up in some kind of politically correct way, or to tell you that you mustn't believe your lying eyes, that kind of thing. And people had really got to the point where they were prepared to listen to people that would give an unvarnished story. It's not to say that every podcast is going to be good, because not everybody has the ability to do it. But it did give some people the chance to put up a channel, and if people liked the way you did it or liked what you had to say, it would grow. And now it's grown ridiculously. And I mean, we grow at the rate of about 10% per month. Okay, so we are 3 times bigger than what we were a year ago, and no sign of slowing down. And that's only because there's common sense in what we talk about. It's not just me giving a crazy view. And we try and make it, in our case, we try and make it constructive. There are a lot of people out there that try podcasting where it's destructive. Oh, everything's going to hell, blah, blah, blah. Look at this bad guy, that bad guy. There's no real solutions offered. But the bottom line is that the days of impartiality are over in media. And by that, I mean that I must accept your bad answer because I'm the journalist and you're the person I'm interviewing and you lie to me. For example, we saw a great example on Sizwe and Pofu Walsh's show the other day, where he's interviewing Paul Mashatile, and Paul Mashatile gives him the most mealy-mouthed excuse, understanding of why he lives in 2 houses, both in excess of 30 million rand, and he just accepts it. Oh, okay. No. If you've got a brain in your head, it tells you that a man who earns 3 million rand a year can't own 70 million rands worth of houses. It's illogical. So push him on it. That's what the market demands, and that's, I suppose, what we're providing. And it feels so strange in South Africa, where we've had 100 years of state-sponsored media like SABC, where they're going to talk, we know who signs our check at the end of the month. And then, of course, the most damaging thing of all, which is private media that relied on licensing of government. So, for example, when you listen to 702, they have to be the biggest mouthpiece for the government because they need their license. So therefore, they can't go out there and say to Paul Mashatile, you're a thief, because they'll lose their license. What can happen to us on YouTube? It would make us more popular if they came after us. So We're at the perfect storm right now, and long may it last.
So, but I mean, in that context, just for the sake of the viewers, I mean, the rise in podcasts I see as being cross-gender, cross-race, cross-LSM groups. You've got guys in townships who are letting their voices be heard. You've got the Sizwe and Paul for Welsh's that you've mentioned with his political contacts. You've got Rob Hersoff for the billionaire. With his, you've got Citizen Concerned, I think it is, with Katlepo. So it's people of all different who are just, and you used the BS word earlier. I'm going to say are just hurtful at the moment and want to be heard. And I think it's giving everyone else out there a fresh perspective that they can also be heard and can express themselves without being labeled as whatever it might be at the end of the day. And that's healthy for us, is that we're able to have that debate, that we're able to hear these opinions, regardless of what we ultimately decide. It's a healthy state to be in, which we can't get from mainstream media. And the same thing happened in the States. I mean, the impact of the podcast in the States on the elections, or Trump getting elected, was massive, absolutely massive.
Yeah, Leon, two things there. Firstly, the massive impact on the US election, but a massive impact on the South African election. Let's not forget, we also had a change of government. And that's also due to podcasting. And if we could do that in 2024, can you imagine what 2026 is going to look like, or 2029?
Yep.
We are going to decide who gets elected. And then just to go back to you, something you said a little earlier, that podcasters don't get labeled. My Lord, you're wrong.
They do, yeah.
Boy, we get labeled. You know, there's not one person that doesn't watch me that doesn't say, oh, you old DA sympathizer, or you this, or you captured, or you this. It's not for everybody. Believe me, you need a very thick skin to do this. I didn't realize it. Or old with nothing to lose.
Okay, I won't say which one you are. I wanted to chat a little bit about that, because you mentioned that you started from a genuine place, okay, which I could see yesterday when I was watching your weekly update, because you were passionate in the discussion that you were having with your audience, and at the end you even joked, well, I hope you were joking, to say that you needed to go before you have a heart attack. So please don't have a heart attack on me today, unless you want to just fake it, and then I can virtually bring you back. That'll get us extra clicks. But you could see the passion coming through. Now, given the news and given the state of where we are in South Africa, there is a lot of negativity towards the ANC, and it's quite easy to be labeled as anti-ANC, and that's the purpose of why you're doing it. But I don't see that. So when I'm watching, I'm seeing someone that's expressing fact around this is wrong and that's wrong. It just happens to be that the ANC is going in a different direction. So do you want to maybe comment on that side of it? I mean, I don't think you're trying to get the ANC out specifically. That just happens to be the outcome because of the situation we're in.
Not specifically. Look, you know, right now, it would be in the best interest of the country to get rid of the ANC as they're currently formatted. But understand, you know, and I've said this to the people around me, because please understand that I've got other people that work with me. So it's you see me, but there's other people that have to endure a lot of me talking, you know, there. And I said that the one thing we must always be prepared for is what would happen if the ANC started to become a good governing party. So you've got to be able to open your mind to the fact that perhaps, highly unlikely, but there's a chance that they might become a good governing party. You never know. You know, if you look at other countries, we've seen parties renew. It doesn't happen often, but it can happen. Much like we're seeing now in reverse with the DA, where they've just become a mealy-mouthed supporter, facilitator of ANC plunder and mismanagement. You know, so you've got to stay, you know, quite mentally flexible. You know, I put ourselves, if I had to package or label ourselves, I'd call ourselves a South Africa First podcast, right? It's very easy, Leon, to see what works, because we've got countries that work and countries that don't work. You follow a certain set of rules, your country works. A certain set of rules in your country doesn't work. This isn't alchemy. This is science, right? By now, we've got, yeah.
Sorry.
No, carry on.
Can we quickly go there? Because so I was actually thinking earlier that I would label you as pro-growth, pro-employment, pro-equality. And that's very much what I align with. I don't care whether it's the ANC or the DA or whatever, as long as we ultimately achieve that as a country. Now, when I was in my last episode discussing the state of the relationship that South Africa has with the US, the impact of tariffs, and the impact that that will have negatively on the opposite of what I said, negative growth, negative employment, and so on. Becky put on the table a series of actions that could be taken to reverse that situation. But could I ask you to reflect for us and just explain to us, in your view, why do we sit with this relationship with the US? Why is it not right for people to say, oh, we'll just replace the US with other trading partners? It's not that simple at the end of the day. And where does that leave us? What do we need to be doing differently? And do you think that could ultimately happen under the current regime?
Look, I think that the tariff thing, we could have a whole discussion around tariffs. Ultimately, it's going to hurt American consumers and the American economy, the American industry. The very thing that Trump's trying to defend is what is going to hurt the most. And we've got a South African history of that. Protectionism usually ends up in a very bad place. So there's that part to it. But to me, just to go back to where I sit, yes, we are pro-growth. Yes, we're pro-free markets. I'm a big fan of democracy because the alternative I'm not a huge fan of. But I'm a pragmatist first and foremost, right? And I think that in a country like South Africa, we've got the advantage of being able to chart our own course. We don't need to be indebted to one or the other. We can be quite independent and quite nimble. But life works on one very simple principle, right? Get your own stuff in order. If you do stuff well, you don't have to worry about, like if you're a golfer, you don't have to tell everybody what a good golfer you are. You just have to play good golf and everybody will tell everybody else what a good golfer you are, right? It's a simple thing. So as a country, if we did things right, we wouldn't have to do half the stuff that we're having to do now to attract investment. People would be attracted by what's going on here, where they would see success. So, where we do have to be thankful about this US problem that we've got at the moment has been that for the first time in the new or the old South Africa, to be perfectly frank, people are engaged in issues that should involve South Africans, i.e., how should we run our foreign affairs? How should we run our economic relationships? What should our policies look like? And so, yes, sometimes I tend towards being sort of that glass half full kind of guy. And I'm saying that from this bad moment, something very good could emerge. Because for the first time, if we look at the current set of circumstances, for the first time, the ANC is being held to account for what they are doing. That's never happened before. And that's a magnificent development. And I don't think we can put that genie back in the bottle. And I think that's positive. So, so people can get up and say, are you sure this is the right economic policy? Either way, should we be doing this? Should we not have an ambassador in America? Do you think that's a smart move? And so I think that a lot of good's going to come out of the current situation, but pain is here. And pain we will feel in the next, in the short term. There's no doubt about it.
EBNet is proud to bring you top quality content from experts across the financial services industry in South Africa and internationally for free. Your support helps us in doing this. All we ask is that you subscribe to our channels by clicking the subscribe button below. Share this video with others you think will benefit from it. And give us thumbs up if you're enjoying the content. That way, you help us help you. Thank you from the team at EBNet. For more great content, please visit www.ebnet.co.za.
President Ramaphosa declared South Africa's economy in a state of emergency. But it sounds like his resolutions around that are exactly the policies that have put us where we are, in my opinion. BEE, the relationship with America, and so on. So, can you comment on that? What is it about the BEE policies that people don't like, and why is it affecting us? And also, where have things gone wrong with America? What is it that America has as their primary concerns with South Africa?
Okay, so the BEE issue is just an extension of bad ideas that have been tried in many countries. We tried it with apartheid. It's got very short legs. Eventually, it falls in under the weight of its own inconsistencies. So the idea of growing an economy by changing 30% of the ownership of the current businesses is the opposite of growing an economy. Okay, you're not growing anything. So, for example, when banks gave away a shareholding of 26% or whatever they needed to do in order to comply, whatever the number is, doesn't matter to you as a bank client. No. Do those people that come in do something different? Are they now going to suddenly employ 1,000 more people? No, they're not. They're going to run the business exactly like their predecessors. That's not to do with one color or another. That's got to do with business efficiencies. So there's almost no good economic outcome to BEE. The only sort of minor economic outcome that is kind of good, we felt about 20 years ago, and that was when a lot of skilled white people felt that they were going to get pushed out of the corporate life and big and public life, for example. Some of them went and started their own businesses, and we saw an explosion of white entrepreneurship that we've never seen before. It was wonderful. And along the way, some of them even got to be big, Capitec, etc. The point is that, but the white population is too small to carry the load. So now that we've had the benefit, that small benefit to BEE, there's no current benefit. And then in many ways, we're making it 10 times worse, because what we're doing is you're taking the smartest black minds, the best black talent, you're putting them into these corporates or into government where they're just going to be a functionary earning a nice package, no risk. I'd grab that job if I was them myself. But these are the very people that should be starting new competitive businesses. So your economy not only doesn't grow, it becomes more lopsided in favor of big operators that can comply with this crazy legislation, right? So I've got a real problem with it from the pure economics of it all. And then, of course, we are also hemorrhaging talent to youngsters, qualified South Africans of all colors that are leaving the country, where they see that this is not a way to grow an economy. And they're saying, you know what, I know I'd have an advantage here, but I don't want to sit here and do well in a place that's declining. So we're losing talent there as well. So that's my problem with BEE. It makes no sense. Let the economy get off the leash. Let's give everybody the ability to grow. And of course, added to that is, while the ANC is so obsessed with number crunching, they're looking at big companies and they're killing small business because our laws are so bad, because nobody's there to challenge them. And when they say they're talking to business, they're not talking to you or me. They're talking to the CEO of Standard Bank or the CEO of Pick and Pay or something like that. Those aren't businessmen. Those guys are big corporate functionaries. So you're not going to get a good outcome from that. So, we need to turn to change our gaze on this.
So wherever we sit in terms of BEE as a policy and so on, this is the first time people have actually started airing their views, and the debate is starting to happen, which is exactly the positive that's come out of Donald Trump and the noise that ultimately has come out of the US. So coming to the US, where have things gone wrong between the US and South Africa on the relationship front?
Well, I think quite simply, all that Donald Trump has done is he has given air to what people were saying behind closed doors in America anyway. And I always say this, believe me, if you think this is a Donald Trump issue, start thinking again. Nobody would have been more disappointed with South Africa than Joe Biden. I'll pick on him specifically. Joe Biden, for all of his failings, etc., was a fierce anti-apartheid activist in the US Senate in the 70s and 80s. He was at the forefront. To see the thing that he had campaigned for, the thing that he used up so much political capital, being run by this bunch of hoodlums, right? Where they now go and side with America's enemies when they don't need to. You know, like I said in that podcast, you spoke about it. Stop worrying about what happens in the Middle East and start worrying about what happens on the East Rand. That's what we demand of our government. We don't have to fix up their problems when we've got 1 million problems at home. It doesn't mean we can't do two things at once, but we don't have to go and put that at the forefront of our actions of things to do. Rather make sure that the trains run. Then you can worry about, making peace in the Middle East. So what I'm saying is that where South Africa went wrong is we went wrong a long time back, where we started to take America and literally tease them by cozying up to people that we knew America didn't like. And in actual fact, that seems to be the one thing that drives our policy is what is going to piss off America the most. So that seems to, I presume at Durko, that's what they do as their mantra. And everybody else was too quiet to say anything about it. Along comes Trump, hardly known for being quiet. And he verbalizes what everybody was thinking anyway, from Obama, Clinton, Obama, all the way through, looking at these guys and saying, well, we are very happy that South Africa became the rainbow nation, but now it's becoming a third world African country. We can't say it, so we'll just do nothing about it. Donald Trump at least has said it.
Yeah, fair enough. You interviewed the spokeswoman or spokesperson of the ANC, and I'd like to clip that into this video just for our audience, because I remember watching that with interest and my mouth gaped when I heard the response that she gave to you. So I'm going to play that for our audience at this point.
To an international investor, they contact you. They say, I am Mr. Big Shot from some country, and I want to open a multi-billion-dollar factory in South Africa. I'm going to buy this land, which I've earmarked. I'm going to build a big factory, right? I'm going to employ thousands of people. But I need to know that nobody, not just you, but nobody could at some stage say, in the public interest, we might just want your big factory and your intellectual property. Can you guarantee me that you can't have it? Then he says, I'm going to bring in a lot of specialists, but I see that there's an employment equity tick box exercise, right, where I am being told who to hire, right? And I run companies all over the world, and nowhere am I told who I must hire. Should I invest in your country or shouldn't I? How would you answer that particular investor?
That you can go and invest in India or elsewhere.
So go somewhere else.
Yes.
But maybe I can ask you to comment the whole issue around tariffs and replacing trade with other trading partners, particularly where we have good relationships in the Middle East with the likes of Iran or Russia or China or whatever. Are these countries that are going to come and invest in South Africa, start up businesses, give away 30% where the US businesses don't want to do that and so on? Are they going to buy the same kind of stuff that we're producing? That the US otherwise would be buying for us.
Absolutely not. And you can start off with China, for example. And China, I've got great respect for what they've done in China. To drag nearly 1 billion people out of poverty in one generation is a feat. It's unbelievably good. And they've done that by becoming the workshop of the world. And along the way, other countries have done it. They weren't the first to do it. Japan did it back in the 50s and 60s. South Korea did it in the 70s and 80s. And then China did it at scale, in the last 30 years. But the bottom line is that China understands that they are not investors. They are producers. They don't want to buy, they want to sell. And our government seems to have a huge problem, and certainly our financial media seems to not understand this at all. China aren't investors. They are sellers. The difference. If you and I have a business meeting, one of us is a buyer and one of us is a seller. And it helps you to know who's who. It's the same goes with countries. So in the case of China, there is one thing they want to buy. They want to buy raw materials so that they can turn it into finished goods, and then they're on full sales mode. Right? They've now also moved to the next phase of production where they're actually building their own brands. So now it makes them even more incentivized to find markets to sell. And they look much like a lion will look at an impala only as its next meal. Won't say, oh, what nice coloring. Oh, I love the way you run. No, he's just merely trying to find the slow one so that he can have dinner. The Chinese look at different countries to say, here's an opportunity to sell more cars. Here's an opportunity to sell more cell phones, whatever the product is, right? They've got enough. So they're not going to come here to say, you know what, let's open a factory in South Africa. And if they did open a factory in South Africa, they'd demand that those workers would be Chinese. So understand what we're dealing with here. You're not dealing with an investor. You're dealing with an organization that's going to sell. So to think that they're going to replace investors, and what is an investor? You're in the business. Investors are people that have got too much money and they want to return over a long period of time, and they're looking for new places that are going to grow, blah, blah, blah. So it's old money. That old money is not in the new economies. And I know I took a bit of heat by calling China a young country, and everyone said, oh, they're thousands of years old. Oh, give me a break. 30 years ago, they were starving to death. They're a new country in that sense, right? So the point is that it depends what we're looking for. In fact, China is our dead-on competitor, right? And then we're cozying up to failed states. Failed states being Iran and Russia. Both failed states. That's why they have to do wars. War is always a sure sign that a state is failing. You start a war not because you think you're so good, but because you know you're so bad. And in both cases, what industry do they have? Well, they both have oil, and they both make arms. I don't know about you, but it's a long time since I bought a Russian car or a Russian microwave oven. And it's also been a long time since I bought an Iranian camera, or any other product from there. These people do not understand production. They know how to make a bomb because it hasn't changed much for the last 1,000 years. These aren't countries that are going to help us out of our economic mess.
So what do you see as being the change that we need to make?
Leon, there is one golden ticket that we have. And I seem to be the only one that sees it. But we can say a lot of bad things about Africa. And we have all done it at the BBEE. But my word, we used to say that to take the top, German manufacturing companies with their best designers to build an ATM, and Africans could break into it with a gem clip and a credit and a piece of plastic. We have got some people that are really quite innovative, creative. We've got great human capital. We just need to direct it correctly. That guy that breaks into that ATM with nothing is a guy who could create a better ATM. Okay, I'm talking old technology, but could create a better something. We need to nurture that creativity. If we've got one edge on China, is that we've got an edge on creativity. They always have to steal their designs because they don't have the people that can design better things. South Africa has got that. So if we just had to focus on the strengths of our people rather than the weakness, I'll never forget when I started to hear Thabo and Becky always talking about the poorest of the poor, and that's kind of carried on. How disgusting that you call your people, not people, but the poorest of the poor or the masses. It's disgusting. Change the language. Let's call our people, right? And let's put them at the top end of the pyramid. I think we've got a lot of talent. We've got an untapped market in South Africa and in the region that we could reach as long as we could create products that they would want to buy. But then government must do its work. Safety and security, property rights, transport networks, just what governments must do, not the other shit. Let them get out of the way and stop with all their regulations.
You know, what's interesting is if you have the economic stats are obviously poor. Unemployment's all-time high. Economic growth is nowhere. Yet our stock market has done exceptionally well, more than 10% real now over the past 5, 10, up to 10 years kind of thing. So retirement savings are growing. So my audience is thinking, oh, things are going nicely in that regard. But that's stock market returns. Those are the biggest of the biggest companies that are looking at rationalization opportunities. They going offshore to find earnings growth. They're not developing opportunities for call it, I don't know if the right word is the average South African or the majority of South Africa that sits unemployed at the end of the day. And that does come down to our support of the entrepreneurial growth, like you mentioned earlier. Yet the amount of legislation is just going through the roof.
Yeah, look,
Absolutely through the roof, and making the red tape so difficult. But then also the relationship from a corporate South Africa perspective in terms of their responsibility towards generating growth in South Africa, not just for themselves, which is their primary objective, but they actually see a bigger picture about developing South Africa for the sake of their longevity. I'm not certain that that's all been properly debated, thought through, and contributed to by all these parties. Because as long as I'm good, so be it, kind of thing.
Yeah, you see, there's two things that a country needs to do, and it's once again remarkable to me that this isn't sort of highlighted more. And sometimes a few miles on the clock gets you to understand that if you look at the hallmark of successful countries, to me, there's two things that they do. Those countries that end up successful, they make their countries a really great place to live in. So you want to live in that country, you want your children to live in the country, you want a future, you look at it, you say, this is great. I'm going to get the flag tattooed on my body. Right? So create a country, which means safety and security, property rights, blah, blah, blah. Not the shit show that we've got at the moment. Then the second and most important thing is create an environment that wants to have everybody live with their money. Now, you know, in South Africa, and I'm sure a lot of what you do, there's no shortage of people that'll say, oh, yeah, I live in South Africa, the sun shines, blah, blah, blah. That's all good, nice golf courses. But take your money offshore. Well, that's the kiss of death for any country. So let's look at countries where they do it right, where they do it right. Look at America. You know, those Americans, America, they're really, really patriotic. They want to live in America. They want their children to live in America and their grandchildren, and they want to leave their money in the local bank. Right? Fine. Tick. Look at Australia. Australia used to be an economic backwater. You know, I always sort of use the fact that in the 1980s, we could buy the entire Australian Test cricket team to come to South Africa, because the Australians couldn't keep their own people in their country. That's how far we've slid and how far they've grown. The point is, it's a nice place to live, and you can, why, if you live in Australia, would want to put your money in a Swiss bank account? Put in the local bank account, you know, have another, you know, put another shrimp on the barbie. It's a great place to live. Great place to leave your money with with you. So South Africa is perfectly placed for that, because it's a great place to live. It's a great place to live. Just solve these little problems. They're not hard. It's the most annoying thing in the world, you know, so that your investment advisors wouldn't say to you, money offshore. Just to go back to the performance of the stock exchange, I think that's the most negative thing in South Africa at the moment, because of the reason that I spoke earlier. What we're seeing is more and more regulation just leads to more and more concentration, which leads to greater profits for ShopRite, which leads to greater profits for First National Bank, and less opportunity to challenge them, because they become bigger and bigger and protected by absolutely terrible legislation.
So our sponsor of Power Plays and Paydays is Motswedi Economic Specialists, who are investment managers, but they outsource the management of monies to professionals. But they seek guys that are looking to grow SA Inc. Through that, be it through private markets and call it up and coming black owned fund managers, which I think is a noble cause, the way they're going about doing it. But it comes with an element of risk, and that's their biggest challenge, is getting the the guys that have the influence over private capital, which is the majority of our economy, to actually take that bit of risk, essentially, with that money. And in order to do that, you need to start thinking to say, you know what, growing retirement savings is not just about the individual and their savings, but it's about the environment in which they're going to retire into. And that should be part of the thinking and the modernization of our thinking afterwards, because you hit the nail on the head. We live in a beautiful country. What we need to do to fix it is not that difficult. And I think it's going to happen. It's going to happen over the years to come with elections and so on, as there are more discussions like this that take place and people start to see the truth of certain things. But we as South Africans, we do tend to come together, but we still got a road to go to meaningfully come together to fix all of this. But the solution doesn't just lie with government. The problem lies with government. The solution actually lies with us.
Yeah, just on the allocation of funds and doing that. I think we've fallen into the same trap as Europe. There was a video which I'll send you the link to, where they talk about over the last, I don't know, period, probably 20 years. There was a time when the EU economy was slightly bigger than the US economy. Since then, I think there have been something like $50 trillion companies that have been created, or some mega number. And they showed that whatever the number is, only one has been created in Europe. All the rest have been created in the US. And now the US is almost twice as rich as the European Union. And I'm saying that the difference between the US and Europe has been risk capital. Americans are prepared to risk because they're naturally optimistic. Those fund managers that you speak of that are looking to invest in things, if they're looking to invest in sure things, then go put more money into Capitec. I'm sure they need it, But let's take the space that I'm operating in, media, right? You're going to find one of those fund managers that will invest in something like what we're doing. No, you will not find them. But they'll all go and put money into prime media, even though they're in the old media and they're going to die, right? The writing's on the wall. But yet, they'll go and put more money into Naspers. But they won't, they won't. So that's why America is dominated, because you can go along and you can say, I've developed this app for car sharing, ride sharing, called Uber. And, to get it to the next level, we can fight our way up. It'll take 30 years. Or you can make money by investing at ground level and invest. Well, those are kind of the investments of the future. That is what's happening a little bit in China, but it's a command economy, so it's happening with state money. Yeah, but they're not investing in sure things.
So I agree with what you're saying. The only difficulty is for fund managers, and I'm not trying to specifically defend them, but they get given a mandate. And that mandate is defined by what I call the asset owner. It's the fiduciaries that have oversight on the members' money at the end of the day. And until they become comfortable with that sort of risk tolerance, it's always going to be difficult for the fund manager to stray too far away from the safe and sort of narrow scope that they have currently. And regulations also drive them in that direction, albeit that regulations have opened up for allowance to private equity infrastructure, but very few people are going there, because there isn't the right understanding. So it's a cultural shift that needs to happen. But that cultural shift has to come from a perspective of, well, why should we do this? What is in our interest ultimately to do that? And I think that will happen. I think that shift is taking place over time. But again, all of these different conversations are so important to move us there, because the most important thing, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm going to state it again, is the solution does not just sit with government. That's going to run its course. We've got to do other things ourselves.
I think the collapse of the ANC has taught us that, government are transitory. The other thing that you've got to hear, and hear me clearly, please, if anybody watches this, and even if it's only two people, politicians are completely reactive. They react to the mood on the ground. So in other words, if you don't think that politicians will listen to a podcast, believe me, when it gains enough traction, they'll react to those points. And that's why we're seeing some of the political changes. That's why we actually saw the president fire a minister. First time I can remember, right? where it wasn't for internal internal politicking reasons, that he actually fired somebody for bad performance. I'm saying that politicians are reactive, and South Africans have got so used to 80-something years of nationalist governments, and the ANC is just a clone of the National Party, where they'll tell you how to think, and you'll just fall in line, and everybody's been happy to do it. Those days are over. Somebody's going to come and grab it. It's going to happen. And your fund managers are going to get left behind because they're going to be left holding the 5 stocks left on the JSE. Well done. And will have satisfied their fiduciary duties. But that's not where the growth of the economy lies. The growth of the economy lies elsewhere. So the time has come for them to play a few shots, or they're going to lose this game.
Well, the proof is there. You just need to go back over history and look at the number of listed stocks compared to now, and the number of IPOs coming to market. It's concerning, and it definitely needs to be arrested. But on that note, Mike, we've run way over time, so it's a fascinating discussion, and I really do appreciate you agreeing to come on, and it's an open invitation. We'd love to have you on periodically. I was going to chat to you about what's going on in our police services and so on, but there's unfortunately not enough time, because that alone is a fantastic conversation to have. So Mark, on that note, thank you very, very much for joining us. Wish you all the best with State of the Nation and your other podcast. Sorry, I can't remember what it's called again. Just remind me.
Political Insider.
Political Insider. So we will include in the description to this video a link to both of those podcasts, and I do encourage our audience to subscribe and follow the conversation, whether they agree or not, whether they like you or not. It doesn't matter. Listen, and let's continue the debate. Mike, thank you. All the best to you, and hope to see you again.
Thank you for the invitation, Leon. I don't have to worry about people not liking me. I don't even think my wife likes me, so that's okay. We're all okay on that. Thank you for the invitation. I hope to get another one soon. Thank you.
Definitely. All the best, Mark. Thanks, then.
Thanks. Bye-bye.